Welcome everybody to the 2026 Formula 1 Miami Grand Prix driver ratings. If you don't know, every single Monday after a Grand Prix weekend, I hop on the stream on Twitch. We look at the race highlights, we look at the drivers' reactions, we look through Discord at all the news and memes from the weekend. We look at F1 Fantasy, we look at F1 Predict, and then we end on Twitch and YouTube, and we do our driver ratings, where we're going to go through every single driver and rate them from 1 to 10, depending on how well they did across the entire weekend. I like to do it based off of their performance. So we're going to look at sprint qualifying, and the race, and give them a rating out of 10. Now, I'm really strict with my ratings. I do it based off their performance, like I said. So no bias into like, oh, they're a rookie, or this is what they should have been, or this is what their usual standard is. No, just purely performance. Now, it's going to be a very, very hard weekend to rate. There will be a poll up for you guys to vote in Twitch chat. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, come join us on Twitch. That is where you can type in chat to get your voting in on the poll. But yeah, let's get into it. So, starting off with... Let me turn my music down real quick. Starting off with... we got to go in reverse finishing order, I should say. So, the first driver to not finish the race is Isaac Hadjar. The poll is up. Get your votes in on the poll. Now, this is how the poll is going to look the entire time. All you have to do is type in Twitch chat a number out of 10. And it will pop up on the poll as so. And after you vote on the poll, type in chat why you've given me that rating. Now, I don't want to see any inconclusives this week because, well, actually there might be a couple, I don't know. Because there's enough sessions to look at. Anyways, what we got in chat? And then we'll talk about Hadjar. Probably the Red Bull break since he's been a Red Bull admin. Wait, what? Mercedes in Canada gonna cook, you reckon? Canada's not been a good track for the McLaren, though. I mean, they kind of threw there last year. Yeah. Tech Rambles, what's up, dude? Welcome to the stream. You have been talking about the Miami GP for 2.5 hours. That's insane. Yeah, sometimes we go for 4 hours, man. You know, we watch a couple videos, we watch the highlights. There's a lot to talk about. We scroll through Discord. There's a lot to talk about, man. There's a lot to talk about. And we've still got another hour to go because we've got all the drivers to talk about now, all 22. Anyways, Isaac Hadjar, let's talk about it. So, Hadjar. Oh, sprint weekend driver ratings are really hard. So, Hadjar in sprint qualifying, qualified P9. Now, he got out-qualified by Max in the final session by a whole second, which is not great. He also got out-qualified by Franco Colapinto. But look, for second Red Bull seat standards, I think he's doing pretty well. But he just needs to get that a little bit closer to Max. But at least he's making SQ3. But shouldn't be getting out qualified by Franco. So let's say maybe below average in sprint qualifying, or let's say average for sprint qualifying. And then in the sprint, he finished in P9. Again, just behind Pierre Gasly. He shouldn't be finishing behind the Alpine, but still finishing in the top 10. Not great, but you know, like it's not terrible at the same time. But he did finish 20 seconds behind Max, which is not great. And then in qualifying, he qualified he actually got DSQ'd. I think he qualified in the top 10, but then got disqualified because of something illegal in his car. So you could argue maybe that is one of the reasons why he did qualify well. I don't know. But yeah, that's not his fault. I think he did decent in qualifying from what I remember. He qualified 28.7, so that would have put him... No, again, qualified P9 behind Franco. So again, whoa. No, a second down on his teammate, behind an Alpine. Again, getting into Q3, doing a good job for second Red Bull seat standards, but still not close to Max and getting out qualified by a midfield team. He shouldn't be letting that happen. But yeah, obviously got DSQ'd, so it didn't matter. Anyway, then started the race from the back of the grid, moved his way through the field quite nicely, and then clattered into the wall, making a mistake. And yeah, ending his race early. Obviously, he himself was disappointed with that. Oh, excuse me. So I think rating-wise, I think... he was having an average weekend up until the race. So I'd probably say a 5 out of 10. Maybe you could argue that's maybe a little bit too high for second Red Bull seat stand. No, I'd probably say a 5 out of 10. Like, he was at least getting the job somewhat done. Maybe missing out on the points and sprint wasn't great. But I'd say probably like a 5 out of 10. But then obviously crashing, giving his team damage. And then, you know, in a race where he was actually going to move through the field. He was moving through the field nicely. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's like, I feel like it's going to be like a 2.5 out of 10. Like, you know, that's a pretty bad crash to be making, especially in a race where he probably would have got points. I mean, it was a tough task having to come through the field, but yeah, that's harsh. I think for Red Bull second seat standards, he had like a 4 weekend, like a 3 or 4. But I think like taking that aside, I think it's like a 2.5, 3. What is your guys' reasoning? Should I round up to a 3 then? Because he was booty. Was way off of Max all weekend, but I know this is just second seat tax. He qualified between both Alpines, P9. He doesn't have the same car as Max though. He should get a 6. He doesn't have the same car. I don't know if I agree with that. Anyways, I'm going to keep it at a 3. Again, really hard to rate someone like that who had a very up and down weekend. But majority of you guys saying 2. I don't know. I feel like I'm being too kind with a 3. Like, you know, he made SQ3, but it was behind an Alpine and a second off Max. He finished 20 seconds off Max and behind an Alpine in the sprint. Qualifying again behind an Alpine, and a second off Max. And then got DSQ'd. And then had a tough task in the race, was doing well, and then crashed. Yeah, to be honest, I think it has to be a 2.5. Again, I think for Red Bull standards, he's doing well. You know what I mean? This is not me dissing Hadja, but performance-wise, he is nowhere near his teammate right now, and he crashed out of the race. I think it's got to be a 2.5. So, yeah, 2.5 for my rating system, but, you know, given the circumstance at Red Bull, I think he's actually doing really good. I think he's doing better than Yuki. What is that hair doing? I think he's doing better than Yuki and Perez and Liam, in my opinion. All right. Moving on, next driver, a driver who also didn't finish the race, Pierre Gasly. What do you rate Gasly's weekend out of 10? And obviously, he did get taken out of the race, no fault of his own. But how did the rest of his weekend look? So, in sprint qualifying, he qualified P10. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 1/10, but he made it through to Q3 and almost maximized. Obviously, he needed to beat his teammate, needed to beat Hadja to maximize, but Good sprint quality from Gasly. And then in the sprint, however, he jumped Franco, jumped Hadja, finished in P8, and got himself a point. So maximize sprint. That's what we want. Then in qualifying, similar story. Got out-qualified by Franco and got out-qualified by Hadja. Only 50 milliseconds behind Franco though, but still got out-qualified by him. And then in the race, you know, who knows how he would have ended, but he was kind of in the mix. I think he would have beaten Franco because Franco had damage. We'll never know though. We'll never know though because he got taken out by Liam. No fault of his own. So yeah, I think it was a pretty decent weekend from Gasly, but maybe you could argue that Alpine is so much clear of the midfield, but just not on the same level as the top teams yet. So maybe Gasly should have been beating Hadja and should have been beating his teammates. So I don't know. I'm feeling maybe like a 6. Maybe it would have been higher if he had to finish the race. I feel like a 6 is like you had an above average weekend, but you lost to your teammate in both qualifyings. You did do well on the sprint, but the race kind of got cut short. So, I don't know, 6, maybe 6.5, maybe. What are you guys saying? 6 seemed down on Franco most of the weekend. Sprint was okay, but main race outweighed it, being worse 2 out of 3. He's doing better than Sonoda. Oh, you're talking about Hadja. Verstappen finally out-qualified him. Behind Colapinto, so 5 plus 1 for point. Yeah, maybe I'll keep it at a 6. It was above average weekend. Would have been rated higher if he actually finished the race, so he kind of just has to cop the rating for the sessions we did see. And 2 of the 3 sessions, he lost to Franco and Hadja. He did make it up in the sprint, though. So maybe it is a 6.5 because that's the session that mattered. We'll go 6.5 because that's the session that mattered. That's the session that mattered. But you're going to rate viewers' cars either later this week or another time. Adam, I feel like I want more viewers, more pictures. I feel like there's not been too many in there. Anyways, majority of you guys saying a 6, so we agree on that for Gasly. Next up, we've got Liam Lawson, my boy. Now, I better not see any stupid ratings. Poll is up for Liam. Get your votes in on the poll. So Liam, like Gasly, also out of the race. No fault of his own. Mechanical failure causing him to go into Gasly. But how did the rest of his weekend look? So in sprint qualifying, he qualified in P16. He got out-qualified by Arvid by 2/10. And yeah, going out in SQ1 is not great, especially when you got the Williams boys ahead of you. Or, well, wait. Sorry. He went out in SQ1, but the reason he went out in SQ1 was because Albon's lap times didn't get deleted. So technically he qualified P16. He actually qualified P17 at the time. So again, got out qualified by both Williams boys, but obviously one of them ended up cheating. So ended up moving ahead of him. But still, got out qualified by his teammate by 2/10. Got out qualified by Carlos Sainz by 1/10. The V carb looked terrible in sprint qualifying. I don't think I think he was on the verge of making it out at SQ1. But when Ocon's behind you, I think he probably should have been making it out there, at least ahead of his teammates. So, yeah, pretty underwhelming sprint qualifying from Liam. But it is a shame that he would have made it through if it wasn't for Albon getting his lap time deleted after the session. And then who knows how he would have done that session. But I don't know, given where that V-carb is, I don't think it would have made too much of a difference. So, yeah, behind his teammate, not amazing, but wasn't bad. And then in the sprint, though, he managed to move up a few positions. He finished in P14 ahead of the guys he needed to finish ahead of, such as Albon. Obviously, his teammate retired or didn't even start the race. But he finished behind Sainz. I think it would have been nice to see him finish ahead of Sainz. He was in a battle with Sainz, Behrman, and Ocon. Yeah, I think that's kind of the max. Not the max, but that's kind of where the V-carb was. So, yeah. Then in qualifying, he qualified P11. I thought it was really good qualifying for the V-carb. Again, given where that V-carb was this weekend, I think it definitely improved between sprint and the normal part of the weekend. But he outqualified his teammate by 0.6 in Q1. And then Arvid ended up going out in P16. Liam made it P11. Liam outqualified both Haas's, outqualified both Williams this time. And the only person he was really behind was Hulk, and it was very close. It would have been nice, again, to see Liam actually outqualify Hulkenberg. But at the same time, like, that's where the V-carb was roughly going to be. So actually a good quality from Liam. Then in the race, he managed to move up a lot of positions off the start. He was running in like P6, P7 at one point. And then, yeah, obviously his car broke down, took out Pierre Gasly. What a shame, man. What a shame. I feel like Liam's luck is just so bad at the moment. So yeah, what do we rate Liam? I don't really know, because sprint qualifying was poor, but it was also affected by Albon being... Albon's not going to get his stuff investigated. Sprint, can't really compare him to his teammate. He should have got past Sainz, but it's a sprint, so I don't know. Yeah, I guess like average sprint, like maybe below average sprint qualifying, average sprint, and then qualifying was really good, and then the race we didn't really get to see him at all. So I don't know. It's like around the 5-6 mark, but I don't know what to give him. I don't know. I feel like 6 because of what he did in the race before he had his issue. But yeah, I think similar to Gasly, it's like... Well, to be fair, okay, so they were kind of similar. Actually, Gasly, yeah, I think this is a fair rating. Because both Gasly and Liam got out-qualified by their teammates in sprint quali. But it was tied. And then did better than their teammates in the sprint. And then in qualifying... did good qualifying. So actually, Gasly didn't have as good of a qualifying as Liam did. And then in the race, Liam was actually cooking before. Yeah, so I think it's 6. Same as Gasly. I think it's 6. You know, if he had have actually done the race, he probably could have got a higher rating, but just limited by the fact he didn't from this race. But what do you guys think? There was no Q3 and V carb. Wait, how are people voting a 6? Wait, you say it should be lower or it should be higher? So the team sabotaged him, not telling the setup was illegal? What? Manjo, you are weird, man. You are really weird. According to that logic, every driver that has got disqualified for setup just wanted to sabotage the drivers. Yeah, Manjo might need a timeout soon. That man's spitting crap. Venom, what is up, dude? Wait, didn't I give Gasly a 6.5? No. Did I? Well, I give Gasly. Because I'm really happy with Liam's quali. A P11 with that V-carb, out-qualifying his teammate, but then again, he did kind of get done in sprint quali and could have done better in sprint. No, I feel like 6. All right, majority of you guys saying 6 as well. We agree. All right, next up, we have got Nico Hulkenberg. What do you rate Hulkenberg's weekend? Out of 10, get your votes in on the poll. So Hulkenberg also DNF'd in the race. A magical mystery DNF. So Hulkenberg's weekend was weird. So in sprint qualifying, he qualified P12, milliseconds behind his teammate. I think Audi maximized sprint qualifying. Really, really good work. And then, obviously, it would have been nice for Hulkenberg to beat his teammate, but they were neck and neck. And I rate Gabby high, so... yeah. Then, In the sprint, he didn't even start the race. He had a retirement, so that is a real shame. And then in qualifying, he qualified P10. Made it through to Q3. No, sorry. He was on the verge of Q3, but Hadja got TSQ. So he ended up qualifying P10, but P11 in the sessions. Yeah, out-qualified Liam, out-qualified the Haas's, out-qualified the Williams, out-qualified Arvid. Did everything he needed to do. Also out-qualified his teammate. His teammate was having his own problems, so not really much to compare there. And then in the race, DNF'd randomly on lap 7. We didn't even see why. I even want to give Hulk a good rating here because he maximized the 2 sessions he was able to compete in. Right? He didn't do the sprint. He didn't do the race. But in sprint qualifying, he maximized other than beating his teammate. And in qualifying, he maximized. But we also couldn't compare him to his teammate in qualifying. And we couldn't see him in the race. So, I don't know. Is this an inconclusive or is this a high rating? I feel like if you don't do either race, maybe it is an inconclusive. Because, like, getting a high rating for just doing 2 good qualies, especially when one qualifying your teammate wasn't even in it, I feel like it's going to be an inconclusive, to be honest. I don't think it's fair to give a rating because if he had done the races, he could have been a 10. But if he did the races, maybe he could have got a fucking 4. So who knows? I think we're going to go inconclusive for Hulkenberg. It's a shame because I think he deserves a good rating for his sprint quali and his quali. But Audi, just too many issues, man. Audi, too many issues. Why timeout for speaking facts, though? This guy, man. I'm Max fan. I respect each and every driver. And Max does when Max does something wrong. Someone time him out. Yeah, I think he got banned from Discord, right? Legit impossible to tell. His car just exploded every single time. Sessions that matter, he could not perform in. Yeah, can't really rate it. Hard to tell. Should be inconclusive, though. All right, we agree on inconclusive. I think if I had to give him a rating, I'd probably give him a 7. But, like, giving a 7 for 2 qualies, one that his teammate didn't compete in, not sure I feel about that. Dino and F1 Meme. Thank you guys for the follows. Majority guys send 6 for Hulk. Oh, my God. All right, shitter time. Let's bang out the shitters. Let's bang out the shitters. First of the backfield, we have got Valtteri Bottas. What do you rate Valtteri Bottas this weekend? So, Valtteri Bottas in sprint qualifying, qualified P20. He out-qualified the Aston Martins. Woo! But he got out-qualified by his teammate by 6 tenths. Then in the sprint, he finished behind his teammate by 10 seconds. And he finished last behind Stroll and Alonso. Yikes. So pretty bad sprint qualifying, pretty bad sprint. Then in qualifying, hallelujah, he beat Perez, I think, for the first time this year by 3 tenths. And then in the race, finished behind him in the race by a whole lap down and behind the Aston Martin. So yeah, only good thing Bottas did this weekend was beat Perez in qualifying. At the end of the day, you know, that Cadillac just needs runtime and he did his job. So I'm giving him a 4. 1 extra point off of my usual minimum. 3 is like the lowest rating you get without crashing the car. Like if you don't crash the car, you get a 3 if you were bad. But he didn't crash the car, so he gets a 3. But I'm giving 1 point for out-qualifying Perez in the sprint. In quali. But other than that, he did fuck all this weekend. So yeah. But then again, there's not much Bottas can do. He's very limited by his car. But then again, he needs to be beating his teammates. So you know, he's very limited by his car right now. But I would like to see him beating his teammate. And when you've only got his teammate and Aston Martin to compare him to, he's coming last behind them consistently. So, yeah. Okay, majority of you guys saying 3 for Bottas. Maybe, should I give him a 3.5? No, we'll go with 4. We'll go with 4. He beat Perez in qualifying. That's what matters most at the moment. All right, I'm saying 4 for Bottas. And then next up, we have got Lance Stroll. What do you rate Lance Stroll's weekend out of 10? Let's bang this out. Lance Stroll didn't even set a time in sprint qualifying. So can't really compare him to Alonso. And then in the sprint, he managed to finish ahead of Albon, finish ahead of Bottas. Obviously, Albon did an extra pit stop. And Bottas was Bottas. He finished 1 second behind his teammate. And he got beaten by Sergio Perez. So pretty disappointing sprint from Stroll. And then in qualifying, he got out-qualified by Alonso by 1/10. Not too bad, though. And he did out-qualify the Cadillac boys. So he did his job in that sense. And then in the race, he finished ahead of Bottas. But also finished behind his teammate by 7 seconds. So 2 miles, not too bad of a weekend from Stroll. But yeah, outqualified by his teammate in both sessions. At least he outqualified Bottas. Yeah, I don't know. Very limited by the car at the moment. I'm thinking of 4.5. Because at least he beat Bottas. But then, no. He should be beating Bottas. He could beat Perez. Nah, it's a 4. Nah, it's not even a 4. I think it should be lower than Bottas. Because he finished behind Perez. He finished behind Perez in the sprint. And he finished behind Perez in the race. Hell no, sorry, I forgot. I was trying to gas him up like, you beat Bottas, well done. No, it's not that he beat Bottas. It's that he lost to Perez. So I think it's a 3 for Stroll. At least he didn't crash the car, right, guys? At least he didn't crash the car. Average Stroll performance could have been a 10 if the rain came. Stroll deserves a 10. You reckon? What's up? Leclerc has the best PR. Oh, he does. He does. Run the stream, dude. He's just collecting data points. He generally got 45 seconds of penalties, though. Wait, who got 45 seconds of penalties? All right, majority of you guys said 3 for Stroll, so we agree on that. All right, next up in the backfield. Oh my God, I hate having to do ratings for these guys every single week. Sergio Perez, Mr. CP himself. What do you guys rate him out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. So Sergio, in sprint qualifying, out-qualified his teammate by 6/10. Also out-qualified Albon because he got his track time deleted. Also out-qualified the Aston boys who barely did a lap. So honestly, maximized. Also, 10 milliseconds off of Ocon. Absolutely maximized sprint qualifying. And then in the sprint, finished right on Alonso's ass, literally 6/10 behind, and beat Stroll by a second. And beat his teammate by 13 seconds. So honestly, maximized sprint qualifying, really good sprint. Then in qualifying, he got qualified by his teammate by 3/10, which is not great, but not terrible. And then in the race, though, he beat his teammate by a whole lap and finished ahead of Stroll. So I think it was actually a really solid weekend for Stroll. Obviously, we've got to keep in mind he is in a Cadillac, but you know, maximized sprint qualifying, really good sprint, L for quali, but then beat Stroll and Bottas in the race. I feel that's a 7. I feel it's a 7. Like, what more can that man do in a Cadillac, really? He's getting track time. He's keeping it clean. I don't know. I don't know. What more can that man do? It's a good weekend for him. It's a good weekend. I think it could have been an 8 if he had beaten Bottas in quali. Because then that would have been a great weekend. He did his job entirely. Obviously, you can't get higher than an 8 when you're in a Cadillac. But yeah, I feel like a 7, knocking 1 point off for losing to Bottas in quali. Yeah, you did get a 9 just for finishing. Yeah, 7 for Checo. Majority of you guys saying a 6. And then last of the backfield, thank fuck, we have got Fernando Alonso. What do you rate Alonso out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. So Alonso in sprint qualifying, he set a slow lap, but didn't really set a lap. Then in the sprint, he managed to move ahead of Perez, ahead of Bottas, and finish ahead of his teammate. Also beat Albon. Obviously, Albon was fucking around at the back. So yeah, solid sprint from Alonso. And then in qualifying, he qualified his teammate by 10, out qualified the Cadillacs like he should be doing. So yeah, did his job in qualifying. And then in the race, he did his job as well. He finished ahead of Perez, finished ahead of his teammate, finished ahead of Bottas by a mile. And I think only finished... he finished 35 seconds off Arvid. So yeah, again, very similar to Checo. Kind of just did his job in every single session, beating his teammate. I think Perez kind of stood out a little bit more, but I don't know. But then again, Perez lost to his teammate, so I feel like it's 7. I feel like it's a solid 7. You know what I mean? Like, he did his job, nothing too crazy. Yeah, 7. I think it's a 7 for Alonso. 10 for having the motivation to even compete. True. Majority of you guys saying 7 as well for Alonso. Okay, we move on. We move on from the fucking useless ratings. Shit teams. What's the point? All right, next up, we're back to some interesting people. We've got Arvid Lindblad. Really weak weekend from Arvid. I would even say, off the top of my head, weaker than China. Yeah, anyway, sprint qualifying. He qualified P15. He did out-qualify his teammate by 2/10, so he did a good job in that department. But then in SQ2, he got out-qualified by Sainz by 3/10. And I do think there was maybe room to battle the Williams there. So being 3/10 off isn't great. But to be honest, I don't think there's much more the VCAB could have done, like I said, with Liam as well in SQ1 and SQ2. I think that VCAB was borderline on going out in SQ1. However, in the sprint, he did not start the race, which is a real shame. Didn't get to see him compared to Liam. Liam kind of got stuck behind the Williams, so who knows what Arvid could have done. Then in qualifying, actually pretty disappointing qualifying. He got out-qualified by Liam by 6/10. He also got out-qualified by the Williams boys, who Liam beat. He got out-qualified by the Haas boys, who Liam beat. And he went out in SQ1. So, yeah, and he was only... No, sorry. So yeah, pretty disappointing qualifying from Arvid. I mean, maybe one of his weakest sessions of the year, if I'm not, again, off the top of my head. And then in the race, he managed to move himself up to P14. But that was basically on the... No, that was only because of the people retired. Wait, he got overtaken by people. Who did he get overtaken by? No, he didn't get overtaken by anyone. Oh, he got overtaken by Gabby. Okay, so he got overtaken by Gabby. And then gained 2 positions on Liam Gasly and Hadjar. Or Liam and Gasly retiring. So, yeah. Didn't really do anything in the race. He did beat Aston and Cadillac, which I don't think is an achievement. But yeah, he finished behind the Haas boys. Finished behind the Williams boys. Finished behind Gabby. Again, I do think the VCAB was a bit of a weird car this weekend. But I think Liam's, at least at the race pace at the start of the race, showed that maybe he was able to compete with the midfield a little bit. But yeah, I think Lindblad just lacked race pace and also lacked a little bit of quality pace in that qualifying session. I think it was a very underwhelming weekend for Lindblad. But I do give him the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, 1, he's a rookie. 2, he's never been here. 3, he had many car issues. So this rating doesn't reflect what I think of his weekend. It more just reflects his performance. So I think I'm going to give him a 4. 1 point for beating Liam in sprint qualifying. Other than that, it was a very weak weekend for Arvid. So, yeah. He was booty, no higher than 5 for sure. 4 is right. He might just struggle at Miami like George. Yeah, I mean, it's first time there. Rastus Racing, welcome to the stream, dude. Very poor weekend for him. But again, I'm not... Like, sometimes people will take my ratings so seriously. Like, you give Lindblad a 4, or you give this driver a 4, like, or like Hadjar, for instance. Like, always the Red Bull second drivers. Like, you're so harsh on the Red Bull second driver. It's like, I actually think Hadjar had a good weekend for Red Bull second driver standards. But, like, from a performance standpoint, you're a second off your teammate. I can't give you higher than a 4, you know what I mean? And this is one of those weekends where I'm not sitting here going like, wow, Arvid had a bad weekend. He needs to step it up. It's more just like, poor weekend, you get a 4, move on. You know what I mean? Like, it's expected when you have that many issues and you're at a track you've never been to before. Mr. CP himself is funny. What's up, Brian? Your opinion on Stroll is horrific. Stroll wasn't bad. That's a bit harsh. The car is horrific. But the thing is, everyone knows he's got a horrific car. So he should be beating Sergio Perez, in my opinion, when your teammate's beating him. I think the Aston Martin, in my opinion, if the Aston Martin can finish the race, it should be better than Cadillac. But I don't know. Maybe my view is wrong on that, but that's how I feel personally. Anyways, 4 rating for Arvid. Next up, we got Esteban Ocon. Another kind of quiet, weird, interesting weekend for a driver. I'm sorry, but these ratings are so bad. He was not the level of the other people who has a 4. Just keep it consistent. 5 could mean brilliant for one driver and bad for another. Well, I guess you're disagreeing with everyone who's voted on the poll. Simply lovely. We do ratings differently here. Anyways, would you rate Ocon out of 10? Come vote on the polls on Twitch. Okay, so Ocon, he qualified P17 and SQ1. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 6/10. He went out in SQ1 while his teammate made it through to SQ2. He got out-qualified by both V-Car boys and Sainz. Yeah, very, very disappointing sprint qualifying from Ocon. However, somehow in the sprint, he managed to move up 6 positions to finish P11 ahead of his teammate, ahead of Sainz, ahead of Liam. So I'm not sure how he did that. Poor qualifying, sprint qualifying, but a good sprint from Ocon. Yeah, he absolutely maximized the sprint. How did he even do that? And then in normal qualifying, he got out-qualified by his teammate again by 2/10 and got out-qualified by Sainz and Liam. and Hulkenberg. So, yeah, I think pretty underwhelming qualifying from Ocon. It wasn't bad, but it was underwhelming. At least he beat Arvid, though, and Albon. And then in the race, he finished behind his teammate as well. He finished 7 seconds behind his teammate. He beat Arvid. And to be honest, he didn't really have much competition because his competition of Liam and Hulkenberg retired. So it's kind of hard to judge a little bit as well, but he didn't beat his teammates. So I don't know. I don't even know what to rate Ocon here. Very bad sprint qualifying. Really, really good sprint. Below average qualifying, or like, let's say, just below average qualifying, and then like an average race. I feel like that's like a fucking smack bang 5 if I've ever seen one. Otherwise, I have no clue what to rate him. What do you guys say? Again, after you vote on the poll, be sure to type in chat why you're voting that so we can discuss it. Ocon was anonymous other than sprint. Teammate legit makes up half of this man's entire fan base. Last stream F1 for Ocon, most likely. I agree. I can't remember anything he did this weekend. 4 because Haas has been bad. All right, majority of you guys said 5. I think it's a 5. Bad sprint qualifying, but made it up with a good sprint. Average, below average qualifying, and an average race. I feel like that balances out to a 5. Let's go 5. You guys said 5. I don't agree with you on that. Although I think there's an argument it could be a 4. There's an argument it could be a 6. No, it can't be a 6, surely. We'll keep it a 5 for Ocon. You're welcome, bro. You're welcome. Next up, Tung himself. Gabriel Bortoleto. What do you rate him out of 10? So, Gabby qualified P11 in sprint qualifying. Out-qualified his teammate, just maximized sprint qualifying. I think that's great qualifying from Gabby. However, in the sprint, he got DSQ'd. Where did he finish in the sprint, though? Before he got DSQ'd? Let's have a quick look. Sprint highlights. He finished P11. So he actually had a good sprint, finishing P11. Where's the sprint results? Yeah, so he finished ahead of the Haas boys, ahead of the Williams boys, ahead of Liam, and just behind Franco. So he maximized the sprint, which is good. Obviously DSQ'd, so he obviously might have had an advantage, but still, good performance from Gabby. It's not his fault that his car was fucked. However, in qualifying, he only got out to do 1 run. It was a very disappointing run. Before I rate Gabby, for quali, did he have an issue in his qualifying lap? Or did he only get 1 lap in and choke? Because that is kind of down to him. Sometimes you have car issues and you have to deliver, and he didn't deliver. But if he had a car issue that put him 2 seconds off, then that's fair enough. His car held him back tremendously. His car had 1 issue. What is it? Just 1 lap? Because if that's the case, if there was no car issues on his lap that he did, sometimes you do have to just lock in. So, it was, again, understandable. He had issues with his car leading up into that session, but it would have been nice if he went out there and actually set a good lap, because his teammate managed to qualify P11 and he is down in P21. So, yeah, I'm 50-50 on his qualifying. However, in the race, he managed to move his way up to P12. He beat Esteban Ocon. He beat Arvid. Wait, did he? Yeah, he beat Arvid. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of retirements, and it's kind of hard to tell, but he finished only 3 seconds behind Behrman. I think he's actually had a pretty decent race. Yeah, again, another driver. I'm not really sure what to rate him here. Oh. So I'm just opening my chat again. It closed. Okay, so really good sprint qualifying. Really good sprint, but got DSQ'd. Qualifying was disappointing, but half not his fault. And then sprint made his way up to P12. Actually, I think he's had a really solid weekend when you look at it like that. Like, to be honest, it would probably be an 8 if it wasn't for his quali being bad, but maybe his quali was bad again because of his car. So, I don't know. What are you guys thinking? You guys are saying 6? I feel like this could be higher than that. Maximized sprint qualifying, beat his teammate. Maximized sprint, but got DSQ'd. Wasn't a great quali, but then finished well in the sprint. Maybe, in the race. Then again, it's hard to judge because his teammate was out of the sessions. So, I don't know. I think we're gonna give him a 7. I think he's actually had a good weekend from what we can see. Laurie boy, they were the follow. 7 for me. What's up, Pug? His break caught fire. Oh yeah, true. True. Okay, yeah, true. Is that actually his break caught fire, yeah. So ignoring qualifying being bad. Did great sprint. Quali. Great sprint. Quali not his fault, and then recovered to P12. I think that's really solid, actually. I think it might be a 7.5. It's a shame that we couldn't compare him to his teammate. He's like plus 3 seconds of quality. That's not skill issue, that's car issue. Most of the people behind him are just driving F2 cars. Yeah, but still. I think in the sessions we saw, man, he was really good in sprint qualifying and sprint for his car. Maybe a 7 and just call it a day because like it's hard to compare when his teammate's not there and so many people retire. I'll go 7, but it's only a 7 and not high because it's too hard to compare when we didn't have anything much to compare him to in the race or quali. So yeah, majority of you guys saying a 6. I do think that's low, but yeah. All right, next up, we have got final driver not in the points. We've got Ollie Behrman. What do you rate Ollie Behrman's weekend out of 10? He votes in on the poll. His car was being worked on most of the quality, so only got 1 lap, and the car was still a bit broken. What were you saying about? I just said thank you for the follow. I think Audi's car was actually decent fast this weekend, just super unreliable. They brought upgrades, right? So maybe they brought upgrades, and the car just like fell to bits. All these are fire. Okay. Ollie Behrman. So, Ollie in sprint quali. Qualified 6 sets ahead of Ocon. He outqualified the Williams boys, which you should expect, and the V-Cub boys, which you'd expect. Yeah, maybe there's an argument he should have been in the Audi boys, but I don't know. I think that's where the Haas was this weekend. I think he's done his job in sprint qualifying. And then in the sprint, he's finished ahead of the Audi boys who had problems. Well, I actually finished behind one of them, but then they got DSQ'd. But he finished behind his teammates. So pretty average sprint from Behrman, I'm not going to lie. And then in qualifying, again, outqualified his teammate by 2/10, but got outqualified by Liam and got outqualified by Hulkenberg again. Again, not bad, just kind of average. And then in the race, he's finished on the verge of points, but behind the Williams boys. He beat his teammate. He beat Bortoletto, but Bortoletto started at the back of the grid. He didn't really have much competition. His only competition was the Williams, and he finished behind them. So... Oh, sprint qualifying 3rd. Oh, fuck. I fucked up the graphic, guys. That's meant to be 13th. That's meant to be 13th. My bad, gang. My bad. I actually think my biggest pet peeve is when people either type his. My biggest pet peeve is when people type his. Like, I'm going to... Oh, his going to give me a drink. I hate when people type his instead of he's. And what annoys me is people's reasoning for typing his instead of he's is, oh, I'm too lazy to put an apostrophe. You can still type he's without an apostrophe. Why are you doing his, bro? And my second biggest pet peeve is when people write firth or second or firth. They're my 2 biggest pet peeves, bro. They're a bit more confusing. I still think you should learn them by the time you're like 18, but I don't mind them as much. It's a bit confusing. But like his and he's, it literally pronounced differently. That's like being like, oh, hi, Chris. Oh, why have you spelled my name Chris? Oh, it's just easier to type Crest instead of Chris. But it's pronounced completely differently, bro. Maybe you should learn at the age of like 6. Let's just use her. True. Let's just use them, actually. Let's use them. Anyways, Ollie. Did I speak about him already? I did, right? I don't know what to rate him, man. Beat his teammate significantly in sprint qualifying. It was just kind of above average in sprint qualifying. Kind of average in sprint because he finished behind his teammate. Or like Okay, above average. The Haas boys actually did well, but then they didn't really have much competition. Decent quali, but should have beaten Liam. But then race finished behind the Williams boys. Good. I don't know. I feel like this is just the biggest 6 weekend ever. I don't know. 6? 6.5? I don't know. Luke, thank you so much for the 33-month resub, dude. Yo, Max Verstappen. Oh, he's not 33 anymore. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate you coming in with the prime. How you doing, dude? How you doing? What? No, you posted something on your story this weekend. What were you at? You were at something, weren't you? Oh, BTCC. How was that? Listen, it took me ages to figure out English numbers. Yeah, true. Maybe I'm slagging people off and it's like language barrier. But if you speak English and okay, how about this? If you speak English and your only language is English, or your first language is English, and you're saying his instead of he's, and you're typing first, second, third, like I just did, but that's a typo, not a brain error. But yeah. Yeah, we should all go by they, them pronouns to fix it. Yeah. Was it brands this weekend? Mate, watch a GT World Challenge. Oh, so that would have been with Verstappen Racing, right? It was good fun. Saw Rossi race. That is sick. That is sick. I would have loved to have gone there. If F1 wasn't on this weekend, I would have 100% gone. For sure. Sexy Ponden, excuse me. Is that an account name now? Anyways, I think I'm just going to go 6 for Bam and call it a day. Majority of you guys send 6 as well. All right. We move on to the points finishes. We have got Alex Albon. Oh my god, his photo is so clapped. His photo is so clapped. Alright, what do you guys vote? Albon, if you haven't already, be sure to vote on the poll. If you're watching on YouTube, come join us on Twitch. That is where you can vote in Twitch chat on the poll for the ratings. Boom, boom, boom. Alright, so Albon in sprint qualifying made a mistake, got track limits. He already didn't out-qualify his teammate, but then he got track limits and went out in P19. So end up qualifying P19. So pretty disappointing sprint qualifying for Albon in that sense. And then in the sprint, pit and fucked around at the back. I don't think he was going to beat his teammate anyway. So yeah, pretty underwhelming sprint qualifying and sprint from him. Qualifying, got out-qualified by his teammate by 4/10. However, absolutely cooked in the race, but finished behind his teammate by 8 seconds. So, yeah. Underwhelming sprint qualifying. Very underwhelming sprint qualifying. Underwhelming sprint. Got out-qualified by his teammate significantly. And then got a point, which is good, but finished behind his teammate. So, I don't know. I'm feeling like a 6. To be honest, over the course of the whole week, I got a 6.5. I mean, a point's great, but like beat him by his teammate in every session, and also was so bad in sprint quality and sprint. So I don't know. Yeah, so Verstappen Racing won the first race by a mile, then got a drive through post race. Hell yeah, that's how they do it. Sainz seems to have the edge on L in the share as expected. Wow, you guys are all saying 7. 7. I mean, I guess like getting a point is good, but like, is he getting a point when 4 people DNF good? I mean, like, he still beat the Haas boys. The only person Albon beat was the Haas boys. Gabby started from last. Arvid started from the back. The only person Albon significantly beat this weekend was the Haas boys. I'm sticking to 6.5. I'm sticking to 6, actually. Bad sprint quali. Fucked around in the sprint. Got out-qualified by his teammate in qualifying. And then got a point because everyone just retired and fucked around. Yes, he did get a point, so props to him. But he still got beat by his teammate by 8 seconds. And the only person he needed to beat was the 2 Haas boys. I know I'm being harsh, but like, I'm doing performance ratings. And I don't think Albon was that amazing this weekend, to be honest. Haas a better car than Williams. They used to give him signs. Okay, I'll give him a 6.5 because he did hold off the Haas boys. But I'm not going higher than that. When you get beaten by your teammate every session and are disappointing in 3 of the sessions and 4 people in front of you retire to get you that point. Anyways, majority of you guys say 7. I can see why you're saying 7, but I think that's too high. I'm going to go 6.5 for the weekend. For the weekend. It would be high just for the race. It would be high just for the race. However, his teammate What do you rate Sainz out of 10? Get your votes on the poll. So, Sainz, in sprint qualifying, qualified P14. He outqualified both VCARB boys. He outqualified Ocon, and he outqualified his teammate by... he actually tied with him in Q2, but his teammate should have been in Q2. Yeah. The only person I think Sainz should have maybe beaten in qualifying, sprint qualifying, was Ollie. But I do think the Haas was better. Then in the sprint, he managed to move up a few positions, but he finished in P13 behind the Haas boys in front of VCAB. So yeah, he's done his job, exactly his job, I think, in sprint quali, and he's done his job in the sprint, and being his teammate in the sprint as well. Then in qualifying, he's outqualified Ocon again. He's outqualified Arvid again, and he's beaten his teammate by 4/10. Again, 1 millisecond off of Behrman, so there was room for improvement in both sprint qualifying and sprint on Ollie. But I'm not too mad about that. I think the Haas is a better car. And then in the race, he's jumped Ollie. He's finished in P9, second best of the rest, obviously behind Franco. Obviously, again, like I said with Albon, he's lucked out by having 4 retirements in front of him. But he's convincingly beat his teammate in all 4 sessions. He's beaten the Haas boys. He's held them off. I think Sainz had a very solid weekend. I'm feeling like an 8 or an 8.5, to be honest. The only thing that Sainz was let down by was just not beating Ollie in both qualies. But yeah, I feel like 8.5. I think he's done really well. I think he's done really, really well this weekend. Yeah, what are you guys saying? Majority of you guys saying 8. Okay, so we agree on that one. After you guys type your vote in chat, let me know why you vote for that. I think for Williams standard, it's a really good weekend. Performance standpoint, I think, yeah, 8.5. For Williams form recently, I think it's great. Yeah, for sure. All right. 8.5 for Sainz it is. All right, we move to the big boys now, kind of. I would say Alpine's kind of in this big boy pack. Oh, no, sorry. We move to the big boys now. Charles Leclerc. Ooh. Get your votes in on the poll. So, Charles, in sprint qualifying. In sprint qualifying, he outqualified his teammate by 4/10. He outqualified Russell in a Mercedes. He outqualified Max in the Red Bull. And he was behind Piastri, Antonelli, and Norris. Now, if I'm not mistaken, at this point of the weekend, the Ferrari was capable of fighting, maybe not for pole because Lando's lap was so good, but it was capable of fighting for the front row. And he made a mistake on his sprint quali lap, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'm fairly sure I remember him making a mistake on his sprint qualifying lap, and he could have been on the front row. So, again, decent, better than his teammate, but made a mistake. Then, in the sprint, however, he managed to move himself up ahead of Kimi, because Kimi had a bad start, and he finished in P3 in the sprint, and he finished 15 seconds ahead of his teammate. So, good sprint. Very good sprint, actually. Very good sprint. I think he's done his job there in a Ferrari. He's beat Kimi, and he's finished ahead of his teammate by a lot. Very good sprint. Qualifying, he's qualified P3. He's outqualified both McLaren boys, who apparently had an issue, but he outqualified Russell, and he outqualified his teammate by 2/10. I don't think he was going to beat Max in that qualifying. I think Max had a better car, and I don't think he was beating Kimi. Kimi is miles up the road. So I think he's done his job in quali. However, the race. Great start, takes the lead. Cool. Awful strategy. Ferrari's fault. Absolutely no communication from the team. Gets undercut by Russell, gets put in traffic. Sucks. Gets past Russell. Good job. Was on for a P4 after all that shit. But then, on for a P3 after all that shit. But then, Oscar catches him, so his race pace kind of fell off. Fucks around on the last lap. Not sure what happened with his rear wing. I don't know if he was purposely letting PSG through or if he forgot to open it up his fucking active aero. But lets Piastri through. Then spins behind Piastri. Crashes into the wall. Gives himself damage. Cuts all these corners. Gets himself a 20-second penalty. And finishes in P8 behind Franco. Oh, my God. I mean, like, Ferrari initially put him in the spot. But then he just made it worse with his own issues. So yeah, I don't really know what to rate Charles here. I think mistake in sprint qualifying cost him a better result, but it wasn't bad and still beat his teammate. I think Charles gets saved by Lewis being nowhere this weekend, to be honest. Sprint, great work. Best session of the weekend. Qualifying, also the same. Sprint and qualifying were good. And then the race, good until Ferrari fucked him and then didn't recover because he fucked himself. So I don't know. I don't know what to rate. Sprint qualifying, I'm going a 6. Sprint, I'm going a 9. Qualifying, I'm going a 9. Race, I'm going probably a 5. Like, he threw away the points himself at the end of the day. Like, Ferrari threw away the podium, but then he recovered, which was good, and then he threw away 5 positions and finished P8. I actually don't know what to rate him. Bro was all over the shop. I don't know. Is 5 harsh? Is 5 too high? I don't know. Super green apple. One of the streams. Same with you, Korenako. Tough one to rate this one, but points must be deducted for his spin on the final lap. I mean, yeah, he lost 5 positions. In the sprint quality, Ferrari were both supposed to be fastest, but they both messed up their laps. Yeah, he also made a mistake in the sprint. Could have overtaken Oscar, but he went off track. Oh, true. True. He tried to get overtaken by slowing on the straight. He was too triggered by Ferrari disaster strategy. He also made a mistake in the sprint. Wait, I read that. My point is Lewis is not good at this track. I actually don't know, man. He gets a 5, then Lewis must be even lower. Yeah. He made a mistake everywhere except quali. Yeah, maybe it is a 5. But 5 for finishing 8th, bruh. What's that 5 for? I guess the 5 is for a okay sprint qualifying, but could have been better. A good sprint qualifying. No, an okay sprint qualifying, but could have been better. A mistake in the sprint, but still finished good. A good quali. And then a good race start. And then got fucked. Fuck, this is too hard. I think it's got to be a 5. There was really good moments mixed with really low moments mixed with Ferrari throwing. And his teammate is just nowhere. If his teammate actually was good this weekend, I think maybe it could have been a 4. But then you look at where Lewis finishes and you're like, well, at the end of the day, he still did better in 3 out of the 4 sessions than Lewis. And the one session he didn't do better than Lewis was because of a post-race burn. I think it's going to be a 5. I think it's going to be a 5. I don't know. Maybe that's harsh. I don't know. But, like, he did throw away 5 positions on his own at the end. Regardless of what Ferrari do, he threw away 5 positions on his own by pushing too hard, dicking around with Lando. He made a mistake in sprint. He made a mistake in sprint qualifying. Too many mistakes, man. Too many mistakes. It's a 5. Majority of you guys saying 6. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That's the Leclerc PR coming in too strong there. Yeah, I'm going 5 for Leclerc. All right, next up, we've got, Franco Colapinto. Might be my driver of the weekend. Might be my driver of the weekend, to be honest. Sprint qualifying. Franco out-qualified Isaac Hedger by a 10th. And his teammate by a 10th. Best of the rest. Best of the rest. You love to see it. Then in the sprint, to be fair, he did get overtaken by Gasly. He did get overtaken by Hedger. But he still finished in the top 10. Still finished just behind Hedger. I don't think that's too bad, given where Gasly finished. You know, like, maybe Gasly was just quicker and they end up doing a swap. Maybe it was just a tangle off the start. I actually don't know what happened. Real quick, let me have a look at what happened in the sprint. Just to see how Franco ended up losing out those 2 positions in the sprint.
Nico Hulkenberg.
Shut up. Did he lose them off the start? Oh, Hedger dropped at the start. So yeah, Colapinto's lost his position off Gasly at the start. Anyways, Then in qualifying, again, out-qualifying Hadja and out-qualifying his teammate by half a tenth. And then in the race, finished in P7. Now, his teammate, I think Gazzy would have beat him. Again, who knows? He didn't. I think Gazzy would have beat him because Colapinto did give himself damage, which we'll talk about in a sec. And Gazzy was out of the race. So if Gazzy wasn't out of the race, maybe he would have finished behind Gazzy and wouldn't get as high of a rating. At the end of the day, Gazzy was out of the race, right? So it's Franco's job to clutch up. And Franco, I think he's had a 50-50 moment with Lewis. I think he was entitled to the corner as per the racing rules. But I think when you see a Ferrari that's quicker than you, why go for a risky move that you might get a pen from, that you might get damage from? He's ended up then giving himself damage. And I think... Well, I think he's gotten damage. Either way, he's finished the race where he should have. So he's done a good job. I just think it was a bit risky doing that. Thankfully, it's not affected him as a racing incident. Thankfully, it's not affected him. Anyways, he's also jumped Charles because Charles has got his pens. So he's finished in P7. So I think Franco's had a really, really good weekend. Amazing sprint qualifying. Could have done better in the sprint. Amazing qualifying. Maybe could have done better in the race, but we don't know because Gazzy wasn't in the race. So I feel like that's a solid 8.5 for Colapinto. For his standards, that's amazing weekend. But yeah, obviously we've seen what Gazzy's been doing lately. I do think he should have done better in the sprint. Sorry, there's room for improvement in the sprint, and there's room for improvement in the race if Gazzy was in the race. But again, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Who knows what Gazzy would have been able to do. So very solid weekend from Colapinto. Very solid. Telt. Name of the follow. Franco didn't have Gazzy as a benchmark in the race, which is the only thing stopping me from giving it a 10. Yeah, I can't go higher than 8.5 because Gazzy wasn't in the race. And he lost out in the sprint. He didn't get that point in the sprint. So I think it's going to be an 8.5 at max, personally. At maximum. Majority of you guys say 9. Look, fair. But I do think 9's maybe a bit too high. My poll's broken. Did the poll website just break? No way the poll website just broke mid using it. No. It does this sometimes. It just like goes down. Bro, can they make better servers? Yeah, I think my poll website just broke. Fuck, no polls for the rest of the driver ratings. Fuck. Anyways, the majority of you guys saying a 9. Alright, we're gonna have to turn the polls off then. That's such a shame. No polls for the final drivers. Alright, next up, we've got Lewis Hamilton. What do you rate Lewis's weekend out of 10? There's no poll, but still type in chat what you rate. Fuck. Alright, so... sprint qualifying. Lewis Hamilton qualified P7. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 4/10. He got out-qualified by Russell, which, I mean, is expected in Mercedes. That's Russell doing bad. But he got out-qualified by Max. Yeah, he made a mistake on his lap and ended up going out in P7 behind his teammate, which is not great. And then in the sprint, he finished in P7 while his teammate moved up to P3. He finished behind Kimi Antonelli, who dropped. He finished behind Max. He finished behind Russell, and he finished behind, obviously, Leclerc. And Leclerc, if he hadn't made a mistake, he would have finished in P2. So, yeah, not sure what happened with Lewis in the sprint. What happened to Lewis in the sprint? Why was he so low, actually? He actually finished 15 seconds off his teammate in the sprint. How's that happened? Anyways, then in then in normal qualifying, he qualified P6, 3 positions lower than his teammate, 2/10 slower. He got out-qualified by Russell, which, again, probably expected for a Merc. It's more Russell doing bad, but Charles beat him. He got beaten by Lando, again, who Charles beat. He did, however, beat Piastri. Well done. But yeah, just a disappointing qualifying. And then in the race, he gets tangled up with Franco Colapinto. Again, I think Franco's entitled to that space, and I think it's a racing incident. I don't think Lewis should be penalized. But he did choose to hook it around the outside of Franco when Franco was entitled to that corner. And in my opinion, I would word it as gave himself damage. Like he's gone for a risky move on a slower car and gave himself damage. If he had just waited for the straight, he gets past cleanly, he can get on with his race. He's been aggressive, gone around the outside, risked a move, gotten damage, which has then made him so slow in that race. So slow. He finished behind Max, who spun on the first lap. He finished behind Russell, who was slow as fuck. And then today, he ended up finishing ahead of his teammate because his teammate decided to dick around on the last lap as well. So well done, well done. But yeah, Lewis was just nowhere this weekend, man. It was so painful to watch. Again, I understand why he was nowhere in the race, but I do think he kind of gave that to himself. Again, I don't blame him, but I do think he gave that damage to himself. He had damage. Yeah, I know, but he gave himself damage. He gave himself damage. It was just painful, man. It was just painful. It felt like the old Lewis of the last few years is back, and I don't want to see that. He probably just doesn't suit this track, but yeah. He ended up finishing 10 seconds behind Max and the squad in front. Yeah, what Lewis could have done that race, who knows? But yeah. Anyways, what are you guys saying? What are your votes? What do you guys vote? Even though we don't have a poll. Anyways, I'm going to have to give Lewis... I mean, we gave Charles a 5. Obviously, he ended up finishing ahead of Charles, but from a performance standpoint, it's got to be a 4 for me, man. It was, you know, a mistake in sprint qualifying and the worst of the front field, other than Hadja. Then in the sprint, again, very poor pace, worst of the front field. And then qualifying, he did beat Piastri, but still not beating anyone else. And then in the race, giving himself damage. Again, he did beat his teammate, though. With the post-race pen, but I just think performance-wise, it was just really, really weak. So yeah, for Lewis, you could even argue it should be lower than that, but I think he gets a point because he beat Leclerc in the end by just not doing something stupid, and he beat Piastri in quali. That's about it. Unquashed again, completely anonymous. I honestly forgot how Lewis did in the race. Lewis was consistently only 5 seconds from Russell and Piastri until he gave up at the end. If he kept with it, he would have gained like 2 places from Pens. He should have improved his qualifying. Lewis gives up the car if it's a bad performance. Piastri was nearly out in quali in Q1, wasn't too good in Q2, so I don't think beating him in quali is too big of an achievement. Fair. I love Lewis, but it's a 5 for me, dog. Even with damage, he gave it to himself. My poll website's still broken. All right, I'm sticking with a 4. It's painful, man. It's painful. All right, top 5 time. We've got Max Verstappen. What do you rate Max's weekend out of 10? So Max in sprint qualifying qualified P5. He outqualified his teammate by a whole second. He outqualified Russell. He outqualified Lewis. But he was behind Charles, who again I think he should have been behind Charles because Charles made a mistake on his last lap, and I think the McLaren was better. I think Mercedes was better. I think given where that Red Bull was in sprint qualifying, I think he's qualified where he should have been, probably better because he's out-qualified Russell and Lewis. So good qualifying, sprint qualifying from Max. And then in the sprint, he's finished in P5. He's beaten Kimi Antonelli. He's beaten Lewis. He's finished behind Russell, though, who I think was struggling this whole weekend. Would have been nice to see him beat him. But again, I think he's done really good in the sprint. Then in qualifying, P2, amazing lap. I'm not sure where that came from with the Red Bull. I think that's typical Max overperforming in the car. Again, I think that's probably the max he could have done with how good of a lap Kimi Antonelli set. He beat Charles. He beat both McLaren boys who had some issues. He beat Russell and he beat Lewis. So I think so far he's 3 from 3. However, in the race, he decided to push too hard, fucking lose the car, and drop. Then somehow didn't get a pen for his incident with Liam. Was very aggressive there. Spent a lot of time getting... Well, he did really good coming through the pack, but he also spent a lot of time battling people coming through the pack, which you could argue maybe he shouldn't have wasted so much time, but you kind of have to do moves like that to kind of come through the pack. And then... what happened at the end of the race? Oh. I personally like the strategy from Red Bull. And he decided to battle Leclerc for some reason. I don't think he should have done that. I think that ended up losing him time on Russell ultimately at the end of the race. And he ended up battling Piastri as well. And he was battling Lando at one point as well. I think ultimately all that cost him a position on Russell at the end of the race. And he was able to beat Leclerc because of Leclerc's antics. So, yeah, I think Max, sprint qualifying, I would give a 8.5. Sprint, I would give a 8.5. Qualifying, I would give probably like a 9.5, honestly. Race, I would give like a... I don't even know. Like, he came back through the field well after with the straight that he was on, but he didn't maximize with beating George, and he spun. He should have been battling for the win, honestly. If I'm being honest, I think he should have been battling for the win. So I don't know, like, it's like a 6.5 for the race. What does that even balance out to? Like, performance wise, like 7.5. I don't know. What are you guys saying in chat? Maybe I'm tripping with that. One second, I need to fix my chat, bro. Shout out driver of the day, fraud driver of the day. Why is he smiling at me like that, huh? Why are you smiling at me like that? 8.5. He did really well, apart from the spin. If I go by my expectations for Max, it's a 3. But you have to account for the spin, just like you did with Charles. Oh, for sure. Honestly, even if he didn't spin, P5 would have probably still been his best. You reckon? I think he could have battled, or at least for the podium. That race was too chaotic from him. I had high expectations. Made a huge mistake on the first lap and did nothing special past the midfield cars. The moves were also dubious at best. He felt very erratic at the race. Fun to watch, but I think it's one of those Max's worst weekends in recent years. I think he ruined it in the race. He also made contact with Russell, which caused Russell to have wing damage. I think Red Bull did a very good job of solving the deck problem. He did drive insane many laps on hard. It was lucky to not get damage on that one. Yeah, did spin, but he recovered well. Yeah, he saved the spin well, but he shouldn't have spun. Love the man, but that's too high. Anyone else throws away a win like that, they get a 5 max. I think your rating is generous. Yeah, no, to be fair, that is a good way to put it. Spinning just because you recovered, like, he did spin. I'm also looking at, remember, sprint quali, and where he recovered to, but still, he did throw away a podium. I said it myself. Going through cars 1 second slower per lap isn't that impressive, to be honest. The Russell incident was not his fault. It was Russell hitting him from not Max. It's a 6, not gonna lie. 7 is perfectly good. 7 is fair. I wish I had the poll. I wish the poll website was working. This would be a good one to poll. I think I'm gonna stick to a 7 because I think performance-wise, sprint quality was good. Sprint was good. Qualifying was amazing. Race recovery was good. But that mistake cost him a potential higher result. But some people would look at it as like, well, he would have finished there anyway. I think maybe it is a 6.5 because he threw away points on Russell as well by battling. He almost got beaten by Lewis, who had damage. And Charles fucking around. And he should have beaten George. Yeah, actually, I'm going to go 6.5. I think good. I think he just didn't maximize. And I think it could have been worse if the other drivers were more locked in. I don't understand what you mean by losing a point by battling. He had to battle. No, if he didn't battle Leclerc and Piastri, he could have finished ahead of Russell. Spinning is one thing, recovery is another. Most would be position 22 after spinning. I'll go 6.5. But I'm really torn on that one because, again, it's typical sprint weekend. I'll go 6.5 and leave it there. But maybe that's a 6.5 for Max's standards. I don't know. It's hard to get that out of your head. All right, we'll move on, though. George Russell. What do you rate George out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. Oh my god, so many lower ratings this weekend. So, George, in sprint qualifying, qualified P6. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 4/10. He got out-qualified by Max. He got out-qualified by Charles, who made a mistake. And he got out-qualified by Piastri, who was struggling. At least he out-qualified Lewis, though. Then in the sprint, he jumped his teammate. He jumped Max, finished P4, but still couldn't catch up the McLaren or the Ferrari boys. So, I don't know. I'd say below average qualifying for Russell, a sprint qualifying for Russell. I'd say a decent sprint for Russell, given where the Merc is. Then qualifying, got out-qualified by 4/10 by his teammate. And got out-qualified by Lando, who was having issues, by Charles, and by Max. Yeah, very, I'd say, poor qualifying for Russell. Then, in the race, finished 43 seconds behind his teammate. Couldn't even finish on the podium. His pace was terrible. He was even going to finish behind Leclerc, despite undercutting him. But hey, he still finished P4. Max didn't finish there. Lewis didn't finish there. Charles definitely didn't finish there. So he still got a result, but a pretty weak result considering where his teammate is. So I don't know. It's definitely around the 5 mark for sure. Nowhere near his teammate in sprint qualifying, below Max and Charles and Piastri. Beat his teammate in the sprint. To be fair, he got beaten by his teammate in the sprint, but then Kimi gave himself fucking track limits pens. Qualifying was poor. And then the race pace was terrible. 43 seconds behind your teammate. Holy. I think it's even lower than that. I think it's a 4.5. I don't know how Russell even gets a 5 here. Yeah. I think it's just because the sprint makes him look better because Russell got, Kimi got track limits. But then Russell was also just so slow, but then he didn't have as bad of a race as Max and Lewis did. So it's like, and Charles did. I think he just looks better because the other 3 fucked up. What did I give Lewis? I gave Lewis a 4, right? Did Russell have a better weekend than Lewis? I mean, Russell beat Lewis, but Lewis was close to his teammate in sprint quali. Russell beat Lewis. And Russell beat his teammate. Russell beat Lewis in qualifying, but was further away from his teammate than Lewis was. Russell beat Lewis, but was further away than his teammate. I think it's a 4. I think it's a 4. Soz. I think it's a terrible weekend for Russell. But I don't know. What do you guys saying? 3 shocking weekend for George. 5, 5, 4, 4, 4, 6, 4. 4 when comparing to Kimi can't be high. Yeah, this can't be any higher than a 4. Expect at least a podium both sprint races from Woody. Yeah. Russell hated since he slapped Bottas. I'm feasting. Basically same as Lewis weekend. Better than Lewis, so 4.5. I don't think he was better than Lewis. Lewis was closer to Charles than Russell was closer to Kimi. And Mercedes have a better car. But yes, he did beat Russell, but he should have gone a penalty too. Penalty for what? Lewis, he's very open about Miami being one of his worst tracks, but when fighting for a championship, that can't be an excuse. No, for sure. Also, I have to look a bit to last year here. Lando was given so much shtick last year for being a couple tenths off Oscar. Kimi is leaving a bigger gap than Oscar. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Max ruined his own race, but Russell managed to finish a second in front. That's not a better race. That's terrible stuff. He was given the wrong setup in the race. The only reason he got those results in the Sprint Grand Prix is most people fucked up. Yeah. Okay, put it this way. Results-wise, somehow Russell should get a 5 or higher. But we're doing performance ratings here. And I think it's a 4. Off of his performance. The only reason he got his results is because of Max, Charles, and Lewis were clowning around. So I'm going to stick to a 4. Russell needs to lock the fuck in, bro. Alright, top 3 time. Oh my god, another guy who stunk this weekend but somehow got a good result. Oscar Piastri. What do you rate Oscar's weekend out of 10? So Oscar, in sprint qualifying, qualified 3 tenths down on his teammate. He beat Charles, thankfully, because Charles made a mistake. He beat Max, he beat Russell, he beat Lewis. So at the end of the day, again, good result, but only because the other 4 were fucking about. But 3 tenths off his teammate. And then in the sprint, he managed to jump Kimi and stay ahead of Leclerc and finish P2. So actually a solid sprint result for Piastri. However, in qualifying, he qualified P7. He got out-qualified by Lewis. He got out-qualified by Russell. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 4/10. Charles, and then Max and Antonelli. So pretty poor qualifying from Piastri. However, in the race, he managed to finish P3, 24 seconds off his teammate. I don't know how this happened. Russell was slow as fuck, so that's why he beat him. Max spun. Lewis was slow as fuck, and Charles fucked up. The only reason Oscar finished on the podium was because the other four were fucking about. But at the end of the day, he didn't fuck about. So, I don't know, bro. I don't know. I gave Max a 6.5, but Max was much better than his teammate and did way better in sprint qualifying, sprint and quali than Oscar did. But then Oscar actually finished the race when, I don't know. 3/10 off his teammate. Did well on the sprint. Nowhere in quali. Got a good race result, but still 24 seconds off his teammate. Is it 6.5? I don't know. I don't know. What are you guys saying? 7, 6, 7, 7.5, 7.5, 6, 8, 7, 7. Oscar only came good in the last 10 laps of the race. Mr. I understand it now. 6, 6, I guess. 7, he had a good race. Made a great move on Russell in the safety car restart. I'm McLaren faster than Mercedes if we remove the driver. 6 so far off Lando all weekend. Can't put too much into quali because the issues in the race was some good move. Yeah, true. Maybe give him the benefit of the doubt for quali. 6.5, just above mid-performance. Really felt the difference in terms of performance compared to Lando. Yeah, I think I'm going to give him the same rating as Max. Max, I think, had a higher performance, but his mistakes cost him. Whereas Piastri had a lower performance by far, but just kept it clean and capitalized on it. So, and again, we're looking at all 4 sessions here. If we remove the driver, who will drive? He was so far off Lando, it's not even funny. I feel like he didn't do much, just capitalize on Charles, Max, and George trying away the podium. He finished behind Lando. I don't know. Part of me is like, are we just rating these guys high because they're the best drivers? Because, like, realistically, I feel like Piastri, Lewis, George, and Max should all just be like 4. Well, to be fair, I gave Russell and Lewis low ratings. At least Piastri finished on the fucking podium. And he did well in the sprint. No, 6.5 is very fair for Piastri. 3rd in the sprint, 3rd in the race. It's just nowhere near his teammate. Yeah, I think it's 6.5. It can't be higher than that. And I don't think it should be lower than that for the results he got. So, I think they didn't fuck around like the other guys. Max's performance was higher, but his mistakes cost him results. So I think him and Piastri are the same somehow. Despite the fuck, yeah. Max here for performance, Piastri here for performance. Piastri here for results and delivering. Max down here for results and delivering. So I don't know. We'll go 6.5. Bruh. This is so fucked. Sprint weekend's hard as it is, but then these guys being so poo comparison to their teammates, it's hard, man. It's hard. All right, let's move on to 2 easier guys to rate. Lando Norris. What do we rate Lando's weekend out of 10? This might be, in my opinion, one of Lando's best weekends. I feel like last year it was always, oh, he had a great result, but, oh, he had great pace, but, oh, this mistake cost him, or this, or this. Honestly, I don't really have much bad to say about Lando, I don't think. Lando, in sprint qualifying, P1 by 2/10 over Kimi Antonelli, 3/10 over his teammate. Charles making a mistake. Amazing sprint qualifying. It did exactly what he needed to do. And then in the sprint, absolutely delivered, finished 3 seconds behind his teammate. Beautiful. 10-10 for sprint qualifying and sprint. Nothing wrong. Then, in qualifying, however, he did have issues with his car, apparently, and he finished P4, which was quite disappointing. But, you know, again, just like Oscar, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for qualifying. He still out-qualified his teammate by 4/10. He beat Lewis and Russell despite having these issues. But I think he could have fought for P3 and maybe higher if it wasn't for them. However, in the race, amazing start. Got up into P2. Then took the lead at one point. Yeah, no, he was leading the race, wasn't he? Yeah. Then got undercut by his team. I haven't heard the radios, so maybe you could say Lando should have played a part in not letting that happen because it is his strategy. But he also has an opinion on the strategy. But, you know, the team, just awful decision, I think, from McLaren. What I loved about Lando was his pace was really, really good the whole time. He got dicked around by Max. I think he was playing the patience game, and I think that was a smarter thing to do, in my opinion, was to play it safe and wait for Kimi's tires to die. But ultimately, Kimi's tires just didn't seem to die, even when Kimi was managing that issue. So yeah, I am feeling this is like a very solid 9 for Lando. I think I'm knocking 0.5 off because he didn't get the win, and I think if he had have just had a little bit more race pace, I think he maybe could have got past Kimi. But then again, you could argue he shouldn't have won the race. And the fact that he was only 3 seconds off of Kimi is really good. So maybe you could look at it that way. And I'll knock 0.5 off for quali. Other than that, I think it was a really, really solid weekend for Lando. Like he absolutely outperformed his teammate. Great results in every single session. Other than quali. Yeah, I think he's done really, really well. I think 9.5 in my 9.5 in my opinion. I think 9.5's maybe too high for a driver who... I like a 9.5. Absolutely obliterated his teammate in the race. Majorly outperformed in sprint quali. Got the job done in the sprint. Qualifying let him down. That's where the 0.5 is coming from. But I think I'm going to play it on the side of... I don't think he would have been able to beat Kimi today. But... sorry, he shouldn't have been able to beat Kimi. But I think he would have if he actually somehow would have if they got the strategy right. I think it was a really high level performance from Lando. He was in dirty air for the whole second stint. That was probably cooked his tires. 10, perfect sprint section. I mean, it can't be a 10. He didn't get the win when he could have. Yeah, 9 is fair. Really good weekend. He lost by no fault of his own, and quali was issue driven, so really can't fault him. Him losing the race win wasn't his fault. Look. I get what you guys are saying about, like, the strategy. I agree with you. The strategy was terrible from McLaren to just let him get undercut. But, like, I think his race pace showed he maybe could have gone for Kimi. I don't know. Maybe if Max wasn't fucking around with him, maybe he could have. But, I don't know. It's one of those ones where it's like, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Anyways, I'm going 9.5. Very solid from Lando. And that leaves Kimi Antonelli in P1. What do you rate Kimi Antonelli's weekend out of 10? Kimi's a hard one. Kimi's a hard one. So, sprint qualifying, he qualified P2, right? He outqualified his teammate by 4/10, which is amazing. But I think he should have got pole. But at the same time, I think it's more Lando having an insane sprint qualifying lap than Kimi doing bad. So I actually think Kimi's had a good sprint qualifying here. Like a very good sprint qualifying here. I think he's almost done what he could have other than gotten pole. So cool. However, in the sprint, he finished P4, was it? Yeah, so in the sprint, he had a bad race start, finished behind Piastri and Leclerc, and then got track limits pens under zero pressure. Choked under zero pressure. And ended up finishing 6th in the sprint, losing 2 points. That was very poor. That was very poor from Kimi. The sprint start was already bad enough as it is, but then giving yourself track limits pens and finishing P6 is bad. So I think the sprint is a... I think the sprint is like a 5 out of 10. Probably even lower, 4 out of 10. Like, he could have been battling for the win, and then he ended up choking the start, and then also giving himself track limits pens. I don't know. That's really bad. So I'd say a 4 for the sprint. Then, qualifying. Amazing lap. P1. Obliterated his teammate by 4/10. Outqualified Max, who was on his tail. Outqualified Charles, Lando. But again, I think that's where the Merc should be. So he's done his job. But he's done it very well in comparison to his teammate. The race, however... losing off the race start again. However, battling Lando, staying in the fight, doing a good strategy with the team, and then holding off Lando. What I was really proud of with Kimi was he held off Lando with issues. You know what I mean? Like, he had an issue with transmission. He was dealing with that. He was dealing with the pressure. He dealt with it really, really well. So an amazing race from Kimi in the end. But, you know, bad race start again. Mistake off the start. And then the sprint, again, very poor sprint. So, I don't know. I'm thinking like around an 8. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? No, when he was leading, he told the team he can't push anymore. 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. I think the reason he couldn't get close to Kimi, even with the overtake, because the McLaren and the Merc was so equal. True, true. 8, 8, 8.5, 8. Sprint was a big yikes, but big points came in the race. He was amazing. 8, 8.5. His race starts at 1. Yeah, honestly. 8.5. Sprint was just poor. 8 is knocked down due to his pen in the sprint. Yeah, P4. 8. He was great all weekend other than the track limits in the sprint. 8.5. I think he should get debunked a lot for the penalty he got. Other than the sprint, other 3 sessions were perfect 10s. I don't know if the other 3 sessions were perfect 10s. I don't think sprint qualifying was a perfect 10 because Lando, even though Lando got pole and it was amazing pole, I still think Kimi could have got pole. So I don't think it's a 10 for sprint quali. Sprint, yeah, obviously not a 10. Quali, quali's a 10. That was an amazing quali. The race is not a 10. You can't make a mistake twice on the opening lap. And then, again, I think it's more McLaren fucking up by not undercutting than Kimi doing anything exceptional. But he still had amazing race pace. Again, 43 seconds ahead of his teammate. Yeah, I think maybe like I did with Lando, I'll bump him up 0.5 just because of how much he obliterated Lando this weekend. But yeah, I'm going to knock off 0.5 for... I'm going to knock off 1 for the race start. I'm going to knock off 0.5 for the race start, 0.5 for... No, 1 for the sprint. Yeah, we're knocking off 1 for the sprint and then 0.5 for the sprint quali and race start mistake. Yeah, maybe you could argue 0.5, another 0.5 for the race start mistake, but... how much he obliterated his team. I think 8.5 is solid for Antonelli. I think 8.5 is solid. To make a mistake in the race and then recover back to P1, I think like it kind of cancels it out a little bit. But yeah, I think 8.5 solid. I think 8.5 solid for Kimi. But yeah, 8 is crazy. What do you think that Leroy? I'd say 8.5 very sloppy in the sprint, but his race was brilliant. Race start is something I don't understand what is happening for him. Yeah, same with Max. Max just keeps losing positions as well. Anyways, guys, that wraps up our driver ratings for Miami Grand Prix. Thank you all for joining me. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What was our highest ratings this weekend? Lando highest rated. Who is second and third highest rated? Colapinto? And Kimi? Did anyone else get like high? I think that's fair to say by McLaren screw up. Bono and Toto both say that this starts due to his team. I think 8.5 is justified. At the end of the day, unrelated, but if George Duracell has another stinker at Canada, we got to wrap it up. That's it. Colapinto Lando, and I guess Kimi P3. Wow. I mean, that's typical with sprint. Because there's more sessions, there's more room for error, which means more lower rankings. But I just think the fact that Max, Piastri, Lewis, and Charles all just were like really weird that Grand Prix. Does that show that these regs are bad and that good drivers are struggling when they shouldn't be struggling? Or does that show that maybe these reg changes coming to this Grand Prix made the cars a bit more balanced and these guys were making driver errors because they weren't anticipating, you know, the level of these cars? Who knows? Who knows? Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up the drive ratings. Thank you all for joining me. If you enjoyed, be sure to follow down below. If you watch on YouTube, we're going to end the stream there. Sorry the polls weren't working at the end there. I'm not sure why the poll website just breaks sometimes. But yeah, if you watch on YouTube, come join us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Ponden. We're always live doing different stuff on Twitch. Be sure to join us for the next driver ratings after the Canadian Grand Prix every single Monday. But yeah, if you enjoyed, be sure to like down below. Be sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.